Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 news. A major update today with Audi officially confirming they will partner with Sauber to become a full team from 2026 and beyond. But the other part of this story is that what influence could they potentially exert before we get to the new engine regs in 2026, and what drivers might they want to put into their seats. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Let's dive into things. Earlier today confirms Sauber will compete as Audi, the Audi factory team from 2026. There was a lot of interest here lately. Porsche have been at, well, they were going to go into bed with Red Bull. They didn't want them anymore, so they might partner up with Williams. There were some rumors about that a couple of days ago. Far from guaranteed though. But this was rumored for quite some time and was officially confirmed today. And that was the thing we were wondering why, when they initially announced that Audi were going to come through as an engine supplier, would they, why would they reveal a car? They actually revealed a livery for their car. And it was like, well, if you guys are just making engines from the new 2026 regs, why would you release a car? It became relatively clear that they had other ideas in mind. But the interesting thing to me is, what is the driver pairing going to look like, and really how do they operate this? Because they really want to take the fight to Mercedes, and they were even throwing some shade at Mercedes when they initially did their announcement, saying, yeah, well, at least we're actually going to make our engines in Germany, unlike a certain other supposedly German team on the grid. But Sauber will become Audi from the 2026 season. Now, Alfa Romeo, who are currently partnered with Sauber, will therefore disappear unless they can find another way to go. But will Alfa Romeo disappear from the Sauber branding sooner than that? And could Audi take over before that, right? Sauber will just become Audi, it seems, from 2026. But could they be Audi Sauber or something for a couple of years before then? That maybe isn't out of the question either. So yes, Sauber is its strategic partner for entry, and Audi are going to make new engines themselves. They're going to be their own engine manufacturer. Really exciting to see new engine suppliers coming into the sport. And, they want to beat Mercedes, right? That's their number one goal, because from a kind of brand and strategic marketing point of view, they can profit massively by beating Mercedes in Formula 1. So that's going to be a tall task, but Audi think they are up to the challenge. So, and of course, we see a picture of Mick Schumacher here because he is one of the key names in discussion as it stands. Apparently, what's going to happen here, the power unit's going to be generated in Audi's kind of one of their, big factories. And then Sauber is going to manufacture and develop the race car at its site in Switzerland. And then Sauber will also be responsible for kind of planning and executing the race operation. So it is a partnership in some senses, and Sauber have a lot of resources in fairness to them, but it's probably going to carry mostly Audi's brand name. And apparently they're also wanting to effectively bring some sort of ownership already in the Sauber team, and what that effectively means therefore is, and even the CEO has mentioned this before, that they will try and employ German drivers. So this is, they're really going down this full German kind of automotive route, because they think the Mercedes haven't fully adopted that. More of a British team, you could argue, even than a German team as it currently sits in Formula 1, especially with the personnel they have on board. So look, Audi, Sauber as they'll be from 2026, want some German drivers, but more than likely they will have influence before then. And therefore, what does that mean for Mick Schumacher, right? Because we believe, as it currently stands, Nico Hülkenberg is going to be Haas's man for next year alongside Magnussen. That's going to be an entertaining pairing as it is, but Mick Schumacher will not be having a seat next season. So when will he return? Would he be the perfect guy for Audi to build around? I think that's certainly understandable. Who could come alongside him though? That's a question. But apparently Audi and Mick Schumacher have already held talks. So he won't be there for next year, because Audi is not going to be there next year. It's still going to be Alfa Romeo Sauber for 2023. 2024 though, who knows? Because apparently Audi plans to acquire a stake in the Sauber group, which means they could have influence on the team's lineup. So even if they are Alfa Romeo Sauber for the next few years and they don't become Audi Sauber before 2026, they could still have a say on what the driver lineup could be like before then. Give Mick a couple of years in that car, because I'm sure Mick Schumacher, even if he does know that when Audi come through he's got that seat pretty much locked up, he doesn't want to take 3 years out of the sport while Haas have other drivers in their team and not get a seat somewhere else waiting for that spot. He wants to be in kind of one of the Alfa Romeo seats sooner than that. And of course, I think Zhou's done a great job in that Sauber seat alongside Bottas this season, but even Bottas has said, you know what, I might want to go to IndyCar at some point. He feels like IndyCar could be a pretty fun racing series for him, less politics, let's say, than in Formula 1 is the words that he used to describe it. And also Zhou Guanyu, there's questions there about, the whole situation going on in China right now, like how much their kind of Formula 1 ecosystem is going to revolve around China, because it seems less and less likely the Chinese Grand Prix is going to happen again next season for reasons we'll see in a second. So more than likely, seats will become available at Sauber, potentially Audi Sauber over the coming years, where Mick Schumacher will almost certainly be. And that's the thing. Sauber have a lot of, facilities, resources to create a good car, but their history in Formula 1 does not look particularly good. I mean, look at this in terms of constructors' placings, really nowhere near where they would want to be. So would this Audi partnership take them in the right direction? I think it's certainly an exciting prospect. They also started out this season so well as Alfa Romeo Sauber, but it fell off a cliff quite quickly when no upgrades were really brought, and then other teams actually could develop their cars down to the weight limit as well. But look, definitely a legendary brand in Formula 1, but now they're probably just going to become Audi or something like that, and it's pretty cool that Audi, the Audi Works team effectively is what it's looking to be. Now, the other part of this story to me is what happens to potentially Sebastian Vettel. We know he is retiring at the end of this season. It's obviously going to be a sad day for the sport. We saw what he was capable of fighting Magnussen towards the end of the race back for P8. Could have had a better finish if it wasn't for the poor pit stop that Aston Martin did towards the end of that race. So look, is Mick going to be an Alfa driver from 2024 at the request of Audi, and then effectively that's just going to become Audi Sauber from 2026 or whatever? And could Seb take an advisory position? That's a decent prediction. Is there any world in which Vettel returns to a driver's seat? It seems unlikely, but look, it's happened in the past. Alonso's kind of moved on, come back to Formula 1. Even Michael Schumacher, another example, stepping away from F1, coming back after a few years. So could Seb do it? I don't really know. I'm not effectively going to buy it, but still, you can't exactly rule it out. Sometimes these people retire and then they just can't hack it and they return for a couple of years. Now, of course, people have asked him this question because it's clear the passion for Vettel is still there. When he finished the race in Texas, like, he was really happy. The fact that he'd taken down Magnussen at the end of that great shootout over the final lap or so, and he was like, yeah, this adrenaline, like, I'm going to miss this adrenaline. I'm going to miss these moments is what he said. And he said the same thing just last time in Japan, right, where he had a great time in Japan, as always at that particular circuit at Suzuka. So he actually said before that, you know what, if a team needs a seat to be filled for Suzuka, then I'm your guy, right? He actually said he would do that, and therefore, obviously his passion for racing isn't gone. More than likely, it's just the fact that he's been driving in cars, especially the Aston Martin. It's taken the wind out of his sails a fair bit when you're used to winning championships and winning races, and then you're stuck in an Aston Martin. It's not great, but his spirits definitely seem to have been lifted with some better performances out of their car recently. So I just wonder if, you never know, like, if Audi Sauber are looking on the up and Vettel actually sees a team that's competitive and they're like, look, we want some German drivers, Seb, do you want to come back and partner up with Mick Schumacher? Like, look, I think this is a very low percentage chance this happens, but look, I don't think you can entirely rule it out based on what we've seen in previous history in Formula 1, that Vettel might think, you know what, one last hurrah, let's give it a go in a couple of years' time. So, of course, look, it's a little bit down the road and Mick Schumacher's going to be there, but if they do need another German driver, there's obviously a pretty good candidate out there that they could potentially go and target, and this just adds on to the fact that Haas are probably not going to renew Mick Schumacher's contract. It's relatively clear based on what they've said recently. We'll take the driver we want in the car and who we think we can go forward with in developing the team. Also stated they effectively want leadership from their drivers, so every day they're implying that they want to get rid of Mick Schumacher as quickly as they possibly can and get Nico Hülkenberg into the team instead. So that's probably going to be the entire driver grid lineup for next season, but it does leave Mick Schumacher needing a seat sooner rather than later. So a few other things to mention here before we close out the video. Firstly, this from Jack Doohan, because Alpine are not the biggest fans of Oscar Piastri right now after all the shenanigans that he's ended up at McLaren, so they're not going to give him any practice time, and they're going to, which makes sense in fairness, but they're going to give it to their Alpine Academy driver Jack Doohan, been performing very well lately in Formula 2, so he is actually going to take over in FP1 at Mexico, and also I believe in Abu Dhabi as well. So that is the plan there for Alpine. This just to mention quickly, because there has been some talk, okay, Riccardo, could he still go to the Haas seat? He's basically said, yes, I'm not doing any car, I'm not going to Haas, like, I'm going to come back in 2024. That's his plan after being a reserve driver for potentially a Mercedes. That is probably the most strong rumour as it stands. There is also this possibility, which I find rather exciting and is a great idea in fairness. ESPN are considering adding Daniel Ricciardo to their broadcast team next season. I think that Ricciardo would be a great guy for this. Incredibly charismatic, but also really down to earth, but also really good and eloquent at explaining stuff when that is required. So that is one thing you might see Ricciardo doing next season, but it depends, because I think Daniel's got to maybe realise that if he does step into a reserve role, the chances of him coming back are very slim indeed, especially if Audi Sauber from whenever just want German drivers, which seemingly is their intention, at least with one of their drivers. And that's the other thing I'm saying about Sauber Alfa Romeo. If Bottas does want to move on to IndyCar, the whole Chinese situation is a bit of a question right now, because apparently the CCP has extended the whole zero COVID thing. So, you know, pretty much means that it seems very unlikely, at least to Joe Soward, that there's going to be a race in Shanghai in 2023. It's currently penciled into the calendar, but whether it's even possible or workable for them to do a race there, because that was kind of the big concern of actually doing a race there, and like, I don't know. But as time is progressing, if there's not going to be a Chinese Grand Prix in 2023, then the whole Chinese relationship with Formula One might change a bit, right? And then it leaves Joe's kind of seat in that spot like up for debate a little bit. I think he's done a great job, Joe, and definitely deserves another season in the sport. But long term, these are factors that definitely merit consideration. But yeah, very much intrigued your thoughts in the comment section below. Just wanted to look at this quickly because these were the World Championship constructors since the inception of the Constructors' Championship in Formula One. And could we in the future have another name added to that list if Audi really do live up to their words? But, you know, would they be able to put together a German driver pairing that would adequately compete with some of the front runners in the sport? Very much intrigued your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.